All right, welcome back to this week's walk and talk. And most days when I wake up, I really do have to pinch myself. But today I had to pinch myself twice because of what I saw this morning. So the first reason I pinch myself in the morning is that because I live in such a beautiful place and I feel so blessed to be able to live and walk in such a beautiful place each day. But the reason I had to pinch myself for a second time today was not for a good reason. So we've seen this backlash that's occurring at the moment with companies. And by the way, this is going to be one of the most rugged walks I've ever done on the channel. Let me just tell you that in advance. And there's a reason I'm doing this rugged walk, because I want to show people what the outdoors is really like, not what North Face, the campaign they have just done, what they've just put out.
Nature lets you be who you are.
Even gay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are cordially invited to the Summer of Pride with my friends at the North Face. We're traveling all the gay across America, and everyone's invited. Put on your boots and come out. Side with us.
That is not the real outdoors. And I think it's crazy that they've just done this campaign. In fact, let me just show you a little clip of what they've actually put out here.
Hi, it's me, Patagonia, a real-life homosexual. And today I'm here with the North Face. We are here to invite you to come out in nature with us. Wow, this is nice. We like to call this little tour the Summer of Pride. This tour has everything. Hiking, community, art, lesbians making art. Last year, we gay saw shade across the nation and celebrated Pride across the nation with hundreds of you across the nation. So come outside and celebrate the beautiful LGHGTV community.
And I know many of you will be saying right now, what? That is absolutely crazy. Why would they do something like that? That just doesn't fit their brand whatsoever. Maybe they're trying to attract new people. Well, again, I would say that's not really the case. I don't think that they think that any of those people from Pride Month will actually start doing the kind of stuff that I do and many of you do on a regular basis. And I think that's pretty obvious from the clip, where that person obviously doesn't want to be out there in nature and wearing big high heels and all that makeup and stuff like that. Today it's actually really hot, and that's why I'm walking in the woods as well, because it's a lot cooler. But I did do a video this week explaining about why all of this stuff is happening and why these companies are doing it, why they've pulled their support for religious organizations, which a lot of companies used to do. They used to support religious organizations, whether that was Christian organizations in the USA or other countries. Maybe in other places they might have supported Islamic organizations, Jewish, Hindu or Sikh. In fact, let's go this way because it's going to be hard to walk up there whilst holding the camera and stuff. But yeah, they have had to pull all of this support that they used to give because they were losing ESG points. Because when they support religious organizations which aren't in line with the new agenda, they actually lose points from their score. So this is why they are supporting, things like Pride Month, not Pride Week or Pride Day. No, it's an entire month for Pride. You don't see an entire month for Christianity or something like that, or for those of you watching from the Middle East, etc., Islam and whatever else. But we just have to look at all the boycotts that are taking place at the moment. We've had this Bud Light, we've had Miller Lite, we've now got Target, we have got Nike, Adidas. All of these companies are going to lose massive share because of these campaigns. And just look how difficult this walk is, by the way, holding this equipment. This is off the beaten path. No one walks here because there are no paths here. You think about who actually buys North Face and outdoor equipment. It's people like me. It's people who are fairly rugged, a little bit tough, or it might be people that just like going out into the outdoors and they don't mind negative weather, freezing temperatures. They don't mind if it's a little bit rugged, and you might, you always risk the danger of tripping over or injuring yourself out here where there is no one for miles around, and there's no phone signal either. So I do think they've got to think about their target market. Same with all of these companies. Okay, I think we've hit a dead end here. I know this video is a little bit ridiculous with this walk, but I just want to give you context to what the outdoors is really like. See, this is a complete dead end now. So we'll have to go back up the hill here. But yeah, you think about it. Who buys this sort of clothing? When I think of the North Face, and by the way, I was in contact with them a year ago with one of their brand, whatever it's called, programs, because my walk and talks fit the demographic, their target market. It is a lot of military, a lot of ex-military, a lot of people who are live on homesteads and farmers, a lot more awake and rugged people. But what did they say? They said that my brand doesn't fit their new campaigns for 2023, and that they're going in a new direction. Well, I think we can see what this new direction is now. But the other thing is, and they very quickly pulled this range from their website. The North Face, let me throw it on screen here, actually did a children's range as well, just like Target, but without the nip and tuck swimwear range for children. And this week as well, I got so much hassle. I had so many messages, oh, I'm unsubscribing, you're anti-trans, you're anti-this, you're anti-LGBT, and all this other weird stuff, because people think, oh, if you don't say anything positive and support the campaign, it means you're against it. That whole slogan, you're either with us or you're against us. And that's what they use. They use these passive aggressive tactics. And I get messages every day and in the comments by people in the LGBT community, and they actually agree with a lot of the things I'm saying. I think everyone draws the line at when these clothing ranges are targeted towards children. I just don't see why you need to do that. Why do you need to make a trans clothing range for children? And why do you need to create all these clinics and everything else for children? I know I gave you guys the example before of there was a lot of tomboys at my school, and they'd play football with me, and we would climb trees, we'd fall out of trees, we'd get into scraps and all sorts. Does that mean that they became boys later on? No, absolutely not. In fact, if I think of the 2 or 3 that I knew, they are mothers now with children. People just go through phases like this. So I think this whole thing is just crazy. And now that I've proven my point to being outdoors and just how rugged it can be, I'll try and get back onto a path which my Ordnance Survey map says is just down here a little bit. So no, I don't support trans children's ranges of clothing and all this other stuff either. And I don't think most people in the LGBT community do as well, because they leave that in the comments all the time. I was actually in the pub about 2 weeks ago, and a gay couple came over and said, hey, we watch your videos, love your videos and all this. And I asked them the question, what do you think about all this stuff going on? And they said, we think it's disgusting the way, all these things are happening at the moment. And it's making a mockery of our community. And they were saying that we've been fighting to get all these rights and other things. And then all of a sudden, the whole campaign is just hijacked and it's turned into a circus. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that feel the same way, especially now. And by the way, people say, well, why are they making this stuff for children? The children aren't going to buy it. Why? I don't get it. Well, it's very simple. It's because if you target children early with educational programs and actually normalize things, then that's what happens later on. They don't grow up thinking any differently. It's like children that grow up in cults. They don't realize that they're in a cult. Okay, we got a ditch here. Yeah, so the children don't actually realize that they're in a cult. And we know that the media pushes this really, really hard as well. The BBC's just launched a new department actually within BBC News. It's called something like the disinformation department or something like that.
And the point of the team, as you said, is to verify video, to fact check, to counter disinformation, and to analyse really complex stories so we can get to the truth of what's going on. Why does this matter? Well, mistruths can cause really serious harm to society and to the people in them. I have some undercover accounts that I've set up for the BBC's Americast podcast, and we use these kinds of undercover accounts, and these are the characters that the accounts belong to.
And the lady, now I can't remember her exact name, but I think it's something like Mariana. Now I know of this person anyway, because you remember that BBC documentary about me making all this stuff up and lies about a central bank digital currency and the Great Reset, which was absolutely the weirdest thing I've ever seen, because within months the central bank digital currency was announced and the Great Reset was put all over the WEF website. So it's just propaganda as usual, and this new disinformation department will be none of the sort. It will just be George Orwell's 1984 doublespeak department, or the Ministry of Truth, which is actually the complete opposite. Now, by the way, people say there's nothing we can do about a lot of this. There actually is, and you can see how this is working right now with Bud Light. If you boycott any company or any news outlet, you just turn it off, the news outlet, and you boycott any brand or company that pushes things that you don't agree with, i.e. children's pride outfit and stuff like that, then that draws away capital from them very, very quickly. And if they've got all of these fixed overheads and the stock price starts crashing, it will be very hard for them to recover. They have to do a huge reversal PR campaign, and that's not something they can do at the moment because of the ESG scores. Another thing I forgot to mention on I think it was yesterday's video, where I talked about the tri-state city as well, was that, check this out. This made me laugh. I forgot to say this, but they actually added a disclaimer onto their website after my big viral video to say that this is nothing to do with, you know, the nitrogen emissions and bulldozing those farms, buying out, you know, compulsory purchase order of those 3,000 farms in that exact area. It's just a coincidence. Oh yeah, just a complete coincidence. Let's just stop for a moment and have a look at the beauty of this area. Look at this. Isn't this just stunning? Clear blue skies as far as the eye can see. But moving away from this sort of stuff for a moment then, let's go into the finance and economics part. The IMF, International Mafia Fund, has just sent a warning to Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe, well, you probably know the background with Zimbabwe. They're hyperinflation. They've still got high inflation now. They started using the US dollar, which was all planned as well. Well, now what they've done is they've started to use a gold-backed currency. So, of course, the IMF and some other organizations are putting out all their propaganda about this. Oh, you know, you shouldn't use a gold-backed currency, and, you know, it's dangerous, and all this other nonsense that they're saying. Now, the other thing was the IMF penalized Zimbabwe because they gave out loans to 25 developing nations during the lockdowns and everything else to help those countries, but they didn't give one to Zimbabwe. And they say it's because Zimbabwe have got a debt, which they're paying, by the way, to the World Bank of $2 billion. Now, $2 billion is nothing on the world stage. $2 billion is chump change when it comes to a country. You think of the US, their debt is $31 trillion with a T. So I just think that this was all a political stunt as usual, because they don't want any currencies and any countries going gold-backed. And over in Canada then, there's just been an article come out in Canada. Bank of Canada says mortgage payments could spike as much as 40%. Actually, let's take the sunglasses off now that we're in the woods again. Yeah, but this letter that they've put out is saying that 40 to 60% of homeowners that have a mortgage are going to see crippling payments in the future. That's the word they used. They said by 2026, this will be the peak where rates will be much, much higher. Gosh, we've got some noisy birds here today. and they're concerned that a lot of these households will simply not be able to service the debt. And there's a lot of reasons for this they go into, and how wages aren't going to keep up, and because of inflation, and interest rates have to stay high, and all of these other things. So that is not looking good for Canadians. And if what they say, because I haven't looked into it in absolute detail, granular to check all the numbers, but if what they say is true, then what they also talk about is house prices coming down in the future. Although that's not really a surprise, shouldn't come as a surprise to most people, because that's what I said a long time ago. And we've already seen some areas of Canada dropping by very large amounts. Just like what I said about, you remember when I talked about San Francisco, and I said as all the tech sector jobs leave and the tech companies leave as well, you're going to see a lot of the money flowing out. You're going to see commercial real estate drop, then you're going to see residential real estate drop. Well, that's exactly what we've seen. And what do we see rise? We see places like Dallas, Texas. Why is that? It's because that's where the money's flowing to. And it's the same thing with, I know some of you are real estate investors, or property investors, as we say in Europe and UK predominantly. That's the other thing you've always got to look for. Where is the money flowing to? See, the mistake that most people make is that they invest into an area that's been growing for a long, long time. No, wrong. You want to invest into an area that's going to be seeing high growth in the future. And that's easy to find if you know what you're looking for. And as many of you know in the private community, that is my strategy. It's one of my investment strategies, is real estate. And one thing that I did this year, at the start of this year, was I purchased a property. And again, I feel very blessed because the strategy worked perfectly. It's a sort of double hit strategy. You look for properties that have been on the market for a long time and they require a lot of work, i.e. the price has been dropped a lot because no one wants to buy it, and they need a lot of work as well. So you, for every dollar you put in, you add, let's say, $2 of value to the house, or $3. There are a lot of these sort of properties around. And this is another way, if you're fearful of a housing market crash or decline, that you can actually beat the market, because this is what you want to look for. You want to look for properties of this nature. And I know in my example, I get calls every day from agents saying, hey, I've got one for you, Neil. And that's how I actually bought my property, massively undervalued. I was offered a property today before I made this video for about 37% below market value, because no one wants to do the work that's required. And that's the other thing that's telling of society at the moment. And I get that if you're a lot older, maybe you don't want to do a huge amount of work to a property. I probably wouldn't want to either. But you've got young people today who, they're fit, they're healthy, they could learn a lot of stuff, and they just don't want to. They could get some of these properties that are quite distressed if they know the techniques to use. Sometimes you can use lease options and all sorts of other things. You can take on properties like this and then renovate them using joint venture partners and all sorts of other things. I'm probably getting too deep on this video explaining this, but there's a lot of ways that people can still do property investment right now in this day and age. And it's still part of my strategy. I will be expanding my portfolio, especially around the unique kind of property that I do as well. I like a lot of heritage houses and things like that people just don't want to do the work on. And that's what I bought. I bought a heritage property with beautiful land on it. But anyway, I digress. What else is going on? UK inflation has just dropped for April from 10.1% to 8.7%. And everyone's celebrating this. Why would you celebrate 8.7% inflation? And they're saying, oh, a huge drop and everything else. It's not a huge drop. And remember that inflation is based on a 12-month period. So inflation isn't dropping like the way they're saying, and the prices are coming down. They're not. Prices are still, this is the thing that's ridiculous. They say prices are coming down. No, they're not. Prices are still going up by 8.7%. So they've only come down based on a year-by-year basis from that rise. See, people just don't really pay attention to this stuff when the news networks, throw out this garbage. And the UK has also come out with something that was quite baffling, actually, to reduce the numbers of people entering the country, because now they're talking about how there's too many people coming into the country. So I thought, oh, okay, they're doing something about, you know, all the boat crossings and stuff like that. That's probably what they're talking about. No, it wasn't that. They said that they are going to curb the amount of visas. So this is paid visas coming into the country, and, you know, it's something to do with students and their families and stuff like that. They said that is what they're going to curb, which is an interesting tactic. So they're going to curb the people with a lot of skills coming in that can contribute to the country and pay for those visas. And they didn't mention anything to do with all of the crossings, which you're not even supposed to talk about on YouTube because you know, it's one of those key topics. But talking about the UK government, Rishi Sunak said he is not going to launch an investigation into Braverman, who is the Home Secretary, who has been caught speeding. Yes, one of the senior people in the UK, and you would expect to uphold the laws and everything else. Well, she's been caught speeding. But probably the reason that he hasn't wanted to do an investigation is because remember that he also has points on his license as well. He was fined. You know, it's just quite funny when you think of these things, and I say funny in an ironic way. I prefer to just laugh these things off because they're just so terrible that I just have to laugh them off, because otherwise it will stress me out and annoy me. A point on jobs then, still we're staying at the UK at the moment. BT has just announced that they're going to be cutting a huge proportion, in fact 42% by 2030. Oh yeah, key year. 42% of all of the jobs. And it's not just BT, which is British Telecom. It's a lot of other tech companies as well. But I said this would happen. The people who have been out there creating all the AI and the tech and everything else are creating the demise of their own jobs and their fellow workers. And that is exactly what we are seeing now. The CEO for BT actually said this. He said that all of these job cuts are going to be replaced by AI service bots, and that in the future you won't even know if you're talking to real human or a artificial intelligence. So that's the reason for all of these job cuts. And he says, you know, don't blame me, basically. A lot of companies are going to be doing this in the future. There's going to be mass layoffs. And another CEO called it an Armageddon in customer service. So if you work in customer service, you might want to just start looking at other roles in the very near future, because there's a very high likelihood that these roles are going to be taken by AI who don't have to be paid by the hour. Asda in the UK, one of the biggest supermarkets, has just announced 7,000 jobs that may be lost. They said that they are not sure at the moment. They want them to take a big pay cut. And again, I don't know what that means in terms of monetary or percentage amounts when they say a big pay cut, but there's 7,000 people that they've said need to take this pay cut or they're going to lose their job. But talking of biggest supermarket, and let's link this to food, I thought it was hilarious what the UK government and the media channels are now blaming on the high cost of food in the UK. They're blaming it on, here it comes, Brexit.
Added over £7 billion or $8.7 billion to total domestic grocery prices, or £250 per family. Now, the results they surfaced as indicated suggest that high inflation is the new norm now, and the cost of living crisis is more of a domestic issue. Data show that inflation figures have exceeded expectations for 3 months in a row. Inflation is becoming more persistent and penetrating previously unaffected areas such as grocery and mobile phone bills.
Oh yes, I mean, I'm surprised it took them this long to think of this one. But yeah, now they're saying that the high prices in food in the UK is all from Brexit, which baffling, absolutely baffling. But they've got to use something to take the heat off, because what do they want? They want to re-elect Rishi Sunak because he's doing exactly what they want him to do, bringing in this CBDC, which will be coming in the not too distant future. I'm still sticking to my 2025, 2026 maybe, but I'm still expecting some sort of a shock in by 2025. But we'll see. And then let's finish up with this then, which I think is very interesting. So Elon Musk's Neuralink has now been cleared for human tests on brain implants. So remember before it was monkeys, and then we covered the pigs and all this other stuff. Now they're going to be able to actually do the trials on humans. So I won't be signing up for the first trial. Let me just tell you that. In fact, I won't be signing up for any trial. No, thank you. I do not want any chips anywhere in my body. Thank you very much. I don't really get that anyway. I'll be honest. I don't really get why people want to have chips and stuff like that implanted in their brains. I can understand for people who are paralyzed, or they have some sort of thing, you know, maybe they were born with something, or people who lost their sight, maybe they're blind, or, you know, I can understand that. But normal people who just want to have these implants so that they don't need to hold a phone in their hand, and, you know, they can use these contact lenses that bring all the information up and stuff. I don't know, I just find it a little bit weird. Why do you need to have that 24/7? For me, if anything, I just turn my phone off most of the time. In fact, you would not, if you even had my phone number, if you were one of the 7 people who has my phone number, you wouldn't even be able to call me anyway, because I wouldn't answer the phone. My phone's always on silent, do not disturb. And I'd have to have it that way anyway, because of the intensity of the kind of work that I do and the research I have to do on a daily basis for you. It's only Friday, which is an intense day as well. Even though I do get to go for a lovely walk like this, I still have to do the research beforehand. I have to edit it afterwards. I have to get it uploaded. So it's really Saturday and Sunday that I get to relax, which is amazing. But I do think this is a really good use of this implant anyway, in that there's a story come out of a man who was paralyzed, and the implant has enabled him to walk again. So this isn't the Neuralink implant, this is another implant, but it's actually enabled him to walk for the very first time.
Tonight, groundbreaking new technology enabling a paralyzed man to walk again for the first time in more than a decade. A year ago, scientists in Switzerland placing electronic implants in areas of his brain and spinal cord that control movement, establishing a wireless connection between Oskam's brain and spinal cord to stimulate movement.
I've also heard about people being able to see for the very first time, or hear for the very first time. And that's beautiful, it really is. I think that it's just a great thing to enable people to have the same level of sight and vision and hearing and mobility and things like I have. I mean, I just can't imagine how difficult that would be if I didn't have those things. So I do think that's a honourable, a good use for that. But apart from that, would I want it implanted in my body? Absolutely not. Because another company has just raised $70 million for advancements in this human cyborg program. And they've talked about, I mean, some of the stuff is really weird, I will say. One of it was this fake artificial skin, and it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie, the way it sort of ripples and moves. And I mean, I don't know why you would need an artificial skin in the first place. Surely the skin that we all have on our body is working perfectly. Otherwise, we would pretty much die. We'd get all sorts of bacteria getting in. We wouldn't be able to control our body temperature properly and all sorts of other things. So why they need to develop a new skin, I have absolutely no idea. But as always, let's finish on the weirdest video I found this week. And it was a pet gala.
The pet gala. We'll leave you with this report. Thanks for watching.
Yes, people seem to have far too much time and money on their hands to throw a pet gala.
This is Kimba. I have him since he fit in the palm of my hand, and they love fashion. You can see they wear hats, they wear glasses. They love it.
She's wearing Naomi Campbell, which is a 2010 Chanel Spring collection by Karl Lagerfeld.
I have nothing more to add to that. I think it speaks for itself. All right, well, I will wrap it up here today. Thank you for watching and enjoying the video. I hope you enjoyed the walk as well. I'm glad that I got back onto the path because it made it a lot easier to do the walk. Other than that, I'll see you next week now. I've already got a couple of very interesting stories to share with you next week already. So I'll see you then. Take care, God bless, and see you next week.